the latest webinar in the Independent Gym series. This is it's actually webinar 31. I missed the chance to call out webinar 30 on the last one, so a bit disappointing, but here we are. Thank you for joining us today. As usual, we're going to be recording the webinar, posting it later. If you've got any questions, throw them up in the chat. So hopefully you enjoy this one. Today's webinar is hosted by, and I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, Gemma Bonnett-Kolakowska.
Kolakowska.
Right?
That's not
Kolakowska.
bad, Rob. That's not bad.
I was close.
Or GBK.
Yes, GBK. So industry legend, industry marketing legend, Gemma. So I knew Gemma from her time mainly at Matrix, but we had a chat here earlier in the week and found out she's got a huge industry career at club level, corporate level, and supplier side. So very experienced. We're really grateful to have you hosting for us today, Gemma. So today's webinar is all about digital marketing without a digital budget. So there's a perception that you have to spend a lot of money on digital marketing to make it work, but hopefully we'll have some little nuggets of information to figure out how to do that on the cheap, if you're a brummie like me. So yeah, on the cheap. On that note, I'm going to hand over to Gemma and away we go.
Thanks, Rob, ever so much. Well, hi, everybody. Nice of you to join me today. And if you're catching up, obviously, later on in the day or at some point, then good to let you see what we're talking about. So obviously, there's an association, like Rob mentioned, about spending a lot of money in terms of digital marketing. And there are companies who spend thousands and thousands. And there's plenty of clients that I work with who spend a lot of money. And the only reason you would start to spend money within digital is if you've got all of the key nuggets in line before you even start spending any money. And what I want to go through with you today are the basics of digital marketing and understanding it a little bit more. So we're going to cover SEO. We're going to talk about algorithms because it's sometimes a swear word, but I'm not going to swear about it today. I'm going to be very polite about algorithms. Talk about social, talk about PPC, inbound marketing you might have heard about. So I'm going to give you a bit of explanation as to what that is. And we are going to talk about websites as well a little bit more. And we'll touch on PPC as we go through, which is pay-per-click advertising, be that on whatever social platform you choose. So the first one is before we go on to this question about knowing your objective, is what is digital marketing? So digital marketing is being able to utilize the internet for marketing purposes and any online-based digital tech. So that could be an app, that will be social media, that will be websites, that'll be direct emails, and all of these linked together. And what we're going to talk about is linking these dots together so you don't have to spend a lot of money to start with. The key one, though, and this is always surprising when I talk to people, is you have to know what your purpose is and your objective. So when you are putting posts on Facebook, what and why are you doing it? If you are putting it on Twitter or you are writing a blog, what is the outcome you want specifically from that action that you take? That's really important. And we spend a lot of time within Bonska writing digital strategies, which obviously fit in within the marketing strategy. And we do all of that before we touch anything. And that's really important for you as a business and a gym operator, is knowing why you're bothering to put content out there. 4 key areas that we're going to touch on to start with, once you know your objectives, is your website. Now, I love websites, and I know that there's various people in this room already who's going, yes, websites, we love them. And Guy Griffiths, who's on this, is a data freak, so he loves the analytics side of websites. But the key point is remove the fluff, remove every bit that you don't need, and keep it direct and to the point and relevant. This is going to be important when we talk about inbound marketing, and this is important to your customer base. Write your website and your content as if you are a customer seeking. Don't write it as the owner, because what you think is going to be relevant possibly won't be. You will also miss some key nuggets of information that some of your customers will be potentially seeking. I've put on here H1s. These are headline ones or header ones in tech term when you have a developer looking at content on a website. This is when you go to a website, you have this bold text at the top on various sections of a website when a website is built. H1 feed into search engine optimizations. It's very important to get your H1s correct. So whatever website platform you are using, your CMS system, go into it and have a look at H1s and make sure the H1s are relevant. Alt tags. Lovely term people like to use. If you're not familiar with them, if you go to Google and you search for an image, you find the image because that website has put a relevant alt tag to that image or that media that is on someone's website. This all connects the dots in search engine optimization. So if you have media on your website, when you go into the back end dashboard, which is where you're building your site or your developer does for you, ensure your alt tags are there for every image or media video that you have present. Analytics codes. Get Google Analytics and drop that code. When you go into your property settings into your website, there are step-by-step guides how to do it, but make sure you get that in place. This all helps to connect the dots when people are searching for you. Know your keywords. We're going to come on to keywords in a minute with Google Trends, but know what people are searching to try and find you. Check your competitors. Don't be afraid to look at what they're displaying on the website, what keywords they're using, because they're also going to be potentially relevant for you. So when people are searching, look at your competitors to see what they're using, because that's going to be important for you when you come onto Google Trends, which we'll talk about in a minute. Make sure your content is relevant, remove the fluff, have CTAs, call to actions. The whole point of your website is to get customers. You want to make them interested and you want to engage and nurture with them, which is going to be important for inbound marketing. Your key aim of your website is to get customers and to communicate information that's relevant to them. Call to actions allow you to capture that data and put it into your management system, whichever system you're using, and then communicate with them to convert them to a sale or to keep them, which is what we want to talk about in a minute. Inbound marketing. Love this term. It's a lovely little term to put everything that you do without realizing into one nice pretty box. So inbound marketing is where you are creating content that is valuable and tailored to your customer base. This is why I said at the beginning, know your objective. This is why I said in the website, know who you're talking to, because your inbound marketing has to be relevant to your objective and has to be relevant to who you're talking to. Otherwise it becomes noise. And those of us who go on the internet a lot will see a lot of noise and a lot of chatter. And if it's not relevant, we discard it. You don't want any of your content to be discarded. So it's very important to know who you're talking to. Inbound marketing, with all these blogs you do, these wonderful videos we put out, and throughout this pandemic in the industry, we feel like all we've done is done videos and stories and webinars. We're doing another one today, which we love. So thank you, Rob. But certainly these stories on Instagram and on Facebook, direct email is another inbound, and all these nurture funnels you might build in your back-end system to encourage people to join. So inbound marketing fundamentally is when you are nurturing to convert to retain a customer. Outbound is the opposite. A prime example is not knowing your customer base. So if you have a database and you are running a class for over 50s and you send it to all of your customer base and you haven't targeted it, it's content that's a majority will not be interested in, and it's outbound. It's kind of scattergun content. The more scattergun content you have, the less engagement you will receive, and that is also very important. Another key one for digital marketing without spending money. All of these you can do without spending money, so that's a good thing. Keywords, one to look at, Google Trends. If you haven't been on Google Trends, go on it, do some search terms in terms of competitor analysis. And this is where you know your competitors, look at their website and look at their terms they've put on their website, pop them into Google Trends and see over a period of time how they are positioning. You can look in the location that you're in. We look at country and things as well. You can look at time and relevance. So you can see what keywords are important to your customer base or against your competitors. So if you don't do Google Trends, it's free, do it. And now put competitor analysis on there, because you'll need to do that to help with your Google Trends. If you're not on Google Business, do it now. All of this is helping the magical word of algorithms we're going to talk about in a minute, and also your SEO. So 4 key starting points, or 5 really from the first slide. Know your objective, get your website sorted, make sure your inbound is relevant. Keywords are important on your website, because your keywords need to also be within your inbound content, because this is how we're joining all these dots together. And if you're not on Google Business, make sure you get on Google Business. Okay. Algorithms. What are these nasty little things that bother us people who work in digital marketing on a regular basis? Algorithms are quite simply when a computer takes information you input into it and gives you an output at the end. That's all it is. But the reason why they get so frustrating sometimes is because each platform and media and app and everything we use has different algorithms, and that helps us understand and capture data. You never know with algorithms, it's why it's important to keep an eye on them. Google, for example, might change an algorithm which will affect your ranking. So sometimes Google will do something and you might have a link within your website that they might pass as suspicious. That will affect your ranking, and that's to do with the algorithms, and you need to understand what you're doing to manage that effectively. Good old Mark Zuckerberg sometimes changes his algorithms. We know that in Facebook and Instagram. When they launched Reels, it threw everybody's Instagram accounts out, and it was great for reporting data for customers when we were trying to do that, because engagement changed, likes changed, followers disappeared. So always be aware of algorithms. Don't be afraid of them. Swear about them if you want to, but just always be aware that things do change, which is why it's very important when you're looking at all the content you're producing in your digital marketing, that once you've done it, it doesn't stop. You have to go back and review it, which we're going to talk about shortly. So look at social platforms. Pick what you want to use to communicate, but have a wide variety in your toolkit. This is important because some people only use one platform. That is fine. The platform you're using is to the relevant audience. A lot of customers now, or a lot of clients I work with, they have a whole array of different platforms that they have a presence on, just so they can obviously see what is going on, but have a position because of their SEO. The more platforms you have that you have a URL connecting to, the better your ranking will be, because it will feed through to your website as well. Which is why people have social plugins on their website, because it's all connected with the dots. I keep repeating myself, but it's quite straightforward. I'm trying to make this as straightforward and easy as possible to understand. So in terms of social platforms, if you use Instagram, brilliant. If you use that as your main post, don't worry. Have Facebook as well. Have TikTok if you don't have TikTok. Think about WhatsApp for business if you don't have WhatsApp for business. Think about Pinterest as well, is another platform. All of these, if you're plugging into your website, so on WordPress, for example, Rank Math or Yoast, that's another platform we're going to talk about shortly. Having all of these different URLs are really important for your positioning. Organic growth. What is organic growth? It's basically when you're doing using internal resource to grow something. So when you're not outsourcing anything, and to make sure you're not spending a lot of money on digital marketing, this is your main area, is your organic growth. It still takes a lot of time to get it right, because I've already talked about quite a few things quite quickly to run through it before Rob tells me to wrap up. So make sure with your organic growth that you are aware that it will take you some time, but the effort is definitely will give you the outturn for your goals in the end. Influencers. We've all heard of social influencers, or marketing influencers is what they are called, I suppose, as a marketer, rather than just social influencers. Every single person is an influencer. It's become quite trendy. All this time you say, hey, my referrals are the biggest thing. They're your influencers that have done that. They're your promoters. So don't be afraid, if you are using social, to recognize that your members, your trainers, their contacts, they're all relevant to you. This is why I'm going to talk about the social reach circle. So we're trying to use your network to expand your reach organically without you spending money. So you do some fantastic content, and I know that it takes time to do content, particularly when you're trying to make sure it's relevant to the market you're talking to. You do your content, you want your team or your trainers to talk about it, or your customers to talk about it, who also might form part of your team in relation to how you operate. They share it out. Doesn't matter how they share it. Engagement is fundamental to your position within the networks you're working in. Content, get your team to share, like, comment, whatever they need to do, get them involved in it. Then what happens is the immediate network from those people, of which you might have 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 different people within this, what you class as your team. They then reach out, that then doubles, triples, and keeps going. The whole point of social reach is that you're trying to expand your reach network as much and as wide as possible without spending any money. And that's your organic growth. So the social reach circle is really, really important. If you have a team, or you're working on your own in a club itself as a PT, and you're on your own and not even in a facility, then your clients are really important. Get them to share and like, because that's going to raise your business and your position. So social reach circle is pretty important. So all of the above we've talked about, fundamentally, they collect the dots and they help with your search engine optimization. All of these linking together help your rankings on search engine platforms. They help your rankings on your social media platforms too. And the whole point of rankings is how you rate against others, and therefore how you are seen and when you are seen in order of importance to those search engines. SEO costs money, surprisingly, because most things do, but there are plenty of free platforms to get you started and for you to begin to understand a little bit more about them. I've put some extra ones in here. I mentioned Google already with Google Console, Google Search Console. You've got page speeds you can look at, all relevant to your search engine, how quickly people see you, and obviously whether you're whether your website is obviously going to be optimized for mobile and use as well. So all these things are quite important to keep an eye on. SEMrush, Screaming Frog, Rank Math and Yoast all have basic free options. You can pay for them as you go through, but all of them are good starting points to give you some understanding as to what is happening within your brand itself or your company positioning on search engines. So they're quite important ones to have a look at. And I'm sure that we'll share this. So if Rob will be able to send these over to you if you want to. Sounds easy. It does sound pretty easy when you write it all down. The biggest thing is planning with this and time. So planning, you need to know who you are talking to. Inbound takes a lot of time to set up, particularly if you're doing nurture campaigns and you're taking people on a special journey to get them to understand who you are and why you want to convert. Blogs take time, content creation takes time, as we all know. But you need to understand what the message actually is as well and be fluid. Things change. Oh gosh, we do know that from what's happened in 2020 onwards. Don't be afraid if you've done a schedule, and do a schedule. Don't just post randomly. Do plan what you're going to do, put a schedule in place. If things change, don't be afraid to move. Be agile with it. All of the digital content moves. It doesn't remain the same. And this is why I say time. The whole point is you need to set, connect, review, apply, and repeat. So once you've done all the things that I've mentioned above, you need to go back and keep testing and checking them all. They change because of algorithms. They change because you're trying to engage and capture people. So don't just put one thing out and think it's going to be okay. Test and play around with things. So you need to know what you're doing. And if you don't panic. There's some great books out there. 3 recommendations for you. Nice and easy. I love the Top of Google one. It's one of my favorite books when I'm looking at Google. Every one comes out every year, although they do have additional editions throughout the year. And one thing I will say is with Bonska Consultancy, we actually work with Google certified experts who have to go on training regularly to keep on top of all the changes that Google make. Going to invest in having somebody look after your digital, that you work with people that you know are well trained for this particular area to save you any headaches that you may have. So 3 good books I'd definitely recommend. Don't have to read all of them, but 3 are definitely ones that will get you started in terms of digital marketing on a minimal budget or no budget. And if you still are stuck, then this is where Bonska come in to help you. Like I said, we only work with PPC experts, pay-per-click experts, but digital marketing is something that we do regularly for all of our clients. And I'm looking forward to hearing any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Gemma. Guys, any questions, get in the chat feature down the bottom, throw them up for us. Gemma will answer those. I've been, as usual, I scribble along as I'm going, and I've made tons of notes, and hopefully, I don't know whether they're questions or statements really, but I'll fire a few out at you. You're talking about websites at the beginning, and you use the term remove the fluff.
Yeah.
Now, I think of the fluff, I've scribbled down blogs and news sections, which seems to me, I mean, I don't read blogs, and it seems to be the things that people put on the websites because they feel like they have to. Is that what you mean, or are you talking about something different?
No, fluff is unnecessary word count.
Right.
So when someone's writing about a company and you're using unnecessary amount of words that mean nothing or mean the same thing just said in 10 different ways, take them out. You want to remove your word count and make it as sharp and concise as possible. Blogs and news are interesting because they're really important for SEO because of URL linking. So that's why a lot of people put blogs on, because they'll write a blog, it will go on there. Some people hide it in a blog section rather than have it on the homepage. But fundamentally, you get a URL for that, which you can then put into your inbound communication, direct email communication. You can use that URL into your SEO posts, into your social media posts, and it all allows transport. So it encourages the communication in the digital world between the 2 platforms. And it shows that they're both active and working together, which helps with SEO rankings.
Excellent, that makes sense. So don't ignore blogs and news sections is the summary. Ignore me on anything digital. Right, let's have a look. There's a question coming from Guy. Have you looked at the Google Trends data on searches for gym, fitness, exercise and health? Really interesting.
Have I?
Yeah, have you?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I remember, I think Guy and I spoke about this a while ago, actually, because it was last year was really interesting because exercise has never really shown that much on Google rankings overall since they started in 2005, I think it was. And in 2020, exercise was one of the top search areas on Google in the UK, which is the first time ever at the start of the pandemic. So yes is the answer.
Awesome. Yeah, I suppose it's opened everyone's eyes, hasn't it, to getting out and about. Yeah, everyone's either going to the gym or whatever. You can't do those exercises. You have to then find alternatives.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think dog walk might be the next highest search if you're from
probably, or puppies.
Puppies, yes.
Dogs. The cost they've gone up to nowadays.
And despair at the price, yeah. Algorithms, I think it's something I don't understand, but you talk about obviously how important they are. How do you go out checking the algorithms and whether you're up to date or?
That's a really good question, actually. With the experts we have within Bonska, they are on. I suppose it's the finger is at their pulse, I suppose, the best way to explain it. So for me, I'm quite fortunate that I actually have a team who keep me up to date with the change of algorithms. Sometimes they have an open eye without them knowing. Sometimes we hear from the US particularly that something has happened before we know. So it really depends on what the change is. Sometimes Google tell you without telling you indirectly. Google Business is a key one with reviews. So they changed their algorithm with Google Business, hence why they were doing all their adverts for local business, because they changed their rankings. They ensured that Google Business positioning was really important for local areas. So hence why they did their marketing to promote it, because they wanted more businesses on. One, because obviously it allows for better advertising spend for people because they've got more businesses on. So therefore, when a business advertises, it's better for them because they get ranked, etc. So there's a whole different reasons, but sometimes you can preempt it based on the marketing that is being done by Google. Sometimes it just happens. Instagram is a key one. There are different websites and trends you can search for that give you trend set data, and you can see what algorithms are being tested before they actually come through. But a lot of the time they change those as well. WhatsApp was the key one with business that we knew about that probably 12 months in advance, and then obviously the date changed significantly. So you can quite easily search around for this content online, but it's when it suddenly happens and they don't say too much is when it throws everything out. But luckily, fortunate for me, I have people who look at that for us, so we know what to do. So when we're writing schedules, it's not too scary, but I do have a lot of customers who start swearing a lot about them.
Yeah, I'm connected with a few other sort of digital agency type people, and there's always a panic when you hear that somebody has changed an algorithm.
Yeah, because
the marketing doesn't work and thi've got to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good luck for you guys doing all that on a daily basis, I must say. I've highlighted here, I think we're talking about socials with organic, and I've basically circled the question: do you find a better conversion from an organic reach than you would from a paid reach, or is there any stats around that?
Yeah, it varies, if I'm honest. It depends on how good your data is when you're doing your targeting, will depend on how good the conversion quality is. So if you are a business and you have limited data, so when you're putting in, so if you're doing paid, for example, and when you're setting your target audience, say in Google or even in Facebook, the more data you have to drop into your targeting, the more specific the conversions or the inquiries you're going to get for that company. If you have limited data or it's not clean and you're not 100% sure on it, then therefore the quality of the inquiries coming in will obviously be less potentially. So if you have organic growth and you have trainers who are sharing it, then naturally, because they are going to have the people who they're connected with are going to have an interest in, and as a social reach circle goes, it's why it's important to get all that working correctly before you start paying. Because if you get that firing correctly, that will give you a good idea of what your organic rate is against your paid rate. And if you are doing paid, you will see that result already in your insights and data you pull off from the reports for the social channels and in Google as well. But it's always worth really making sure you've tested your organic as much as possible, or before you start paying for paid, just to make sure you're not spending money unnecessarily. Because when you start spending money on pay-per-click, it can get quite expensive. So it's important to do the background first.
Excellent. And then the last one for me, so if anybody else has got any questions, get them in pretty quick. Oh, but I've circled TikTok, and I think I've circled it. I think I've circled it because I'm probably a bit old to understand it. And I'm wondering, should all gyms have an account and use it, thinking about the URL links that you mentioned, even if their members are perhaps of an older generation? So where would it play, I suppose? Where would it come into play?
With TikTok, I would only be using TikTok if I had the right demographic, because it wouldn't be relevant. So when I see at the moment, TikTok isn't showing on URLs that you need to put in. Pinterest has not suddenly appeared, it's been there for a year or so with a lot of SEO search terms, but Pinterest has become a key area. TikTok is growing more and more and more, and now with advertising, etc. on there, that will soon become part of that. But it's worth having a presence and occasionally going on and liking, even if you're just liking and you don't have any content, just to have that URL is quite useful. But TikTok, for, you know, depending what demographic you're focused on, but certainly if you're trying to get the younger individuals in, I know that working with education facilities, you know, TikTok's become a really big area for them for using that to promote for universities at the moment. So yeah, it's definitely worth keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, fantastic. Right, I think that's all. There's no questions coming through. Everyone's a bit quiet today, but hopefully we've gone through some.
I've seen Matt's on here. I'm surprised Matt's quiet.
Yeah, he's normally quite vocal, isn't he? He's going to pop in a minute. Never mind. Gemma, thank you very much for hosting. Really appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.
Hey, Gemma.
If anybody's got any questions.
No, Matt.
Oh, yeah. That was really interesting. Thanks very much. No, it was so good. You answered everything.
Oh, good. That's
no
good.
questions, but thanks very much. It was really good. Cheers.
No problem, Matt.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you very much for hosting. For anybody who's watching this back, two little announcements. One you will have heard all about, which is obviously the conference on the 7th of July. So if you've not got your ticket, grab one. Come to the barbecue as well, because that'll be great. Boris is making his announcement on Monday. I'm more than confident that he's going to let us all come together. So fingers crossed. And then the second one, next week's webinar. If you've asked in the group in the past about cleaning materials that don't rust your equipment, next week's webinar is the one to watch. It's not exciting, but it will be useful for you, so jump on that as well. Thursday 4 o'clock next week. So on that note, Gemma, thank you very much, and we'll sign off there.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks everybody. Take care. Bye. Bye.